The Vanishing of Emily Grant, the case that terrified a small town. If you think this story is crazy, wait till you hear how it ends. Hit that subscribe button because things are about to get dark. It started on an ordinary Friday night in Havenbrook, a quiet lakeside town tucked between pine forests and winding back roads. Nothing remarkable ever happened there until 11:47 p.m. when a call came through the county dispatch line. A jogger had found a car idling by Miller's Lake, driver's door open, headlights slicing through the fog. The car belonged to 29-year-old Emily Grant, a beloved high school art teacher. Inside, her phone sat on the passenger seat, still recording. The video was only 47 seconds long. Emily's breathing was frantic. She whispered, "I know you're following me." The phone panned toward the tree line. A faint human silhouette appeared for less than a second, then static. Detective Aaron Blake arrived within minutes. He'd handled dozens of missing person calls, but something about this one felt wrong. The air was unnaturally still. 2 sets of footprints led from the car toward the woods. Only one set came back. The larger prints looked like heavy work boots, half erased by damp soil. By morning, the town was in shock. Local teacher missing, car found at Miller's Lake. The story spread fast, and soon everyone in Havenbrook had an opinion. Some said she'd run away. Others whispered about the woods, about lights seen hovering over the water, about curses that went back generations. But Blake ignored the noise. He focused on evidence. Emily's house was neat, almost staged. Her laptop revealed late-night messages with a contact saved only as R. The texts were chillingly vague. "I found it." "They can't know." "Meet me at the lake." The number traced back to a prepaid phone registered under a dead man's name, Robert Langford. Detective Aaron Blake stood at the edge of Miller's Lake, watching the ripples fade where the diver had surfaced. The blood-stained ID of Samantha Cross lay sealed in an evidence bag on his dashboard. One woman missing, another dead for years, both tied to the same place, the same cursed water. He requested every record tied to the Langford Mining Company explosion from 10 years ago. Most files were missing or heavily redacted, but one name kept appearing in faded signatures: Lieutenant Jason Miller, Blake's former partner, who had quietly resigned after the Langford case closed. At the time, the explosion had been blamed on a methane leak. No bodies were ever recovered. Blake knew better than to trust coincidences. He drove to the old mine before dawn, headlights cutting through the mist. The entrance had been sealed with rusted fencing and a no trespassing sign. The padlock was new. Someone had been here. When he broke it open, the air that poured out was damp and metallic, heavy with decay. Deep inside, water dripped from the ceiling in rhythmic echoes. Flashlight beams caught glimpses of collapsed tunnels, forgotten machinery, and faded warning signs. Near the back, Blake's light fell on a door partially buried under a cave-in. Behind it, he found something unbelievable. A small underground office, papers scattered across the floor, a cracked lamp, and a filing cabinet stuffed with documents stamped confidential. He pulled out a folder marked Project Aurora. Inside were invoices, property deeds, and storage permits signed by local officials, authorizing illegal chemical dumping beneath the lake. The Langford explosion hadn't been an accident. It had been a cover-up to bury waste that could poison the entire town. Emily must have found this. That's why she met R at the lake. That's why she disappeared. Among the files was an old photograph. It showed Emily smiling nervously, standing beside an older man in a security uniform. On the back was scrawled, R. Langford, Supervisor. Robert Langford hadn't drowned. He was alive. Back in his car, Blake's phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have gone in there." Attached was a photo, taken moments ago, of him standing at the mine's gate. Heart pounding, he drove straight to his old partner's cabin. Jason Miller opened the door slowly, eyes hollow, beard unkempt. "I told them to leave it alone," he muttered before Blake could speak. "They own everything. The land, the water, the people investigating it." "Emily found proof," Blake said. "You were part of the original case. What happened?" Miller stared at him, trembling. "Langford's not dead. He faked it with their help. They paid me to close the file." He turned toward the window. "You don't understand, Aaron. He's still running things, under a new name, and she found him." Before Blake could respond, a gunshot shattered the silence. Miller fell forward, eyes wide, blood pooling beneath him. The window was broken. Whoever fired the shot had a clear view of the cabin. Blake dropped to the floor, pulling his weapon, scanning the trees outside. Nothing but shadows. He crawled toward Miller, but the man was already gone. In his dying hand was a small key, clenched so tightly it had cut into his palm. Blake pried it free. Etched on the metal were 2 letters, LM, Langford Mining. He staggered outside. The wind had died. In the distance, headlights flickered once, then disappeared down the forest road. Someone had been watching. When Blake returned to his car, another message waited on his windshield. It was a single Polaroid, grainy, dark, taken from the woods. It showed him standing beside Emily's abandoned car. The note on the back read, "You were supposed to let it die with her." And for the first time in his career, Detective Aaron Blake felt the sinking realization that he was no longer investigating the case. He was inside it. Detective Aaron Blake sat alone in his car, rain slamming against the windshield, the Polaroid photo glinting in the dashboard light. His face stared back from the image, taken hours earlier by someone who knew his every move. He wasn't chasing a killer anymore. He was being hunted. He drove to the Havenbrook Police Archive, the only place where the original Langford case files might still exist. Inside, the lights flickered under the storm's weight. Dust coated every surface. But behind a false panel in the records room, he found a box labeled simply, LMC 2015. Inside were photographs from the explosion site, but none showed fire damage. Instead, they showed sealed barrels marked hazardous waste, do not disturb. Dozens of them. The explosion had been a staged detonation meant to bury evidence of illegal dumping, and Robert Langford had been the site supervisor overseeing it all. Blake turned another photo and froze. Emily Grant was in the background, wearing a reflective vest, talking to Langford himself. The date stamp was 2 weeks before she disappeared. She hadn't been investigating as an outsider. She had been working with him. His mind raced. What if Emily wasn't a victim at all? What if she was part of it until something went wrong? He followed the trail of evidence to an abandoned warehouse listed under a shell company traced to Langford's old business. Inside, the air reeked of chemicals. Footprints in the dust led to a heavy steel door. He unlocked it using the key Jason Miller had died protecting. The room beyond looked like a crude laboratory. Laptops, maps of Havenbrook's water systems, and a wall covered with photos of Emily. But the center of the room held something worse. A video recorder, still running, connected to a small TV screen. He pressed play. Emily's face appeared, pale and frightened. "If you're watching this," she whispered, "it means they found me. Langford isn't dead. He works for them, the same people who poisoned this town. I thought I could expose it, but I was wrong. They're everywhere, even inside the department." Her voice cracked. "Detective Blake, if you see this, don't trust anyone, not even yourself." Static swallowed her last words. Blake stumbled back. The meaning hit him like a gunshot. Emily wasn't accusing him of betrayal. She was warning him. The corruption ran deeper than Langford. A door creaked behind him. He spun around, weapon raised. Robert Langford stood there, alive, older but unmistakable. Eyes cold, voice steady. "I warned her to stop digging," he said. "Now I'm warning you." "You faked your death," Blake said. "You killed her," Langford smirked. "You think anyone cares? We built this town's wealth by hiding its poison. People just didn't want to know. Emily wanted to make them see." He stepped closer, unarmed but confident. "You can walk away, file your report, call it an accident, like we always do. Or you can end up like her, another ghost story." Blake's hands trembled on the gun. Lightning flashed through broken windows, lighting the old man's face. But before he could respond, the building shook. An explosion echoed from somewhere below. Water burst through the floor. Langford's eyes widened in panic. "The mine!" he shouted. "The old tunnels!" The flood swept through the warehouse, knocking them off their feet. Blake clawed his way to the exit, lungs burning. Behind him, Langford disappeared into the rushing black water. When the storm cleared, half of Havenbrook's lakeshore had collapsed, and with it, every trace of the mine. Authorities called it a freak cave-in. Blake knew better. Days later, as he filed his final report, a sealed envelope arrived at his office. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid. Emily Grant, Stan, Ding alive, staring straight into the camera. The background? A motel room. The date? Yesterday. Blake's hands went cold. He turned the photo over. On the back, written in her handwriting, were the words, "You found the wrong body." The video ended there, a long silence, then the low hum of static. And somewhere, beneath the dark surface of Miller's Lake, something still moved. The official report claimed the cave-in at Langford Mine destroyed all remaining evidence. Robert Langford's body was never recovered. And the case of Emily Grant? Officially closed, ruled as presumed deceased. But nothing about Havenbrook ever felt truly finished. Locals still whisper about lights seen flickering under the lake at night, and about a woman's voice that sometimes echoes from the water, calling for help. Detective Aaron Blake transferred out of Havenbrook a few months later. He never spoke publicly about what he found that night, or about the Polaroid mailed to him afterward. The file labeled, "The Vanishing of Emily Grant" remains sealed under federal order. Yet every October, when the fog rolls in over Miller's Lake, someone leaves fresh flowers by the old pier. No one knows who. No one admits to seeing her again. Maybe Emily Grant really did die that night. Or maybe she escaped, and she's still out there, hiding from the same people who buried the truth. Either way, one thing is certain. In Havenbrook, the past never stays buried. So if you think this story was chilling, you're not ready for the next one. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and join me next time, where another closed case might not be so closed after all.